Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where today I get to sit down and talk with Mike from Epic Duck Studios. He has such an awesome style of painting and has been doing this way longer than you know. Stick around, we have an exciting chat. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff.
I think you're like the perfect person to talk to about not like literally you can try whatever you want, and cutting through the noise of the internet is insane, and
right.
Trying to find like an algorithm that like goes like, oh no, you're worth showing off. Like you've had like these like really crazy highs and lows over the last couple of years. That's been really interesting to watch, because some of your videos just like slam, and some like, how has only 200 people watched this video?
Yeah, I don't get it either. Like my contrast paint video is at like 200,000 views or something, and I've got other ones that are sitting at like 500, and it's like, could it like YouTube just recommend this a little more often?
Right. Well, and that's the thing that like, you know, when you talk to people like Squidmar and Miniac and Jeremy, you know, great people, very like they will give you whatever information that they have to like help you out.
Yeah.
Like you also realize that they have no idea either. Like the things that have worked for them, like may not work for the next person.
A lot of it is luck. A lot of it is cult of personality too. Like just once you get people watching your videos, they watch all your videos, right?
Right.
And the one thing so I've been in a process of sort of like refining my videos very, very recently, to the point of like I just bought a new camera like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
Just to start recording in 4K. And that actually came from watching a Miniac video where he was talking about how he records in 4K and then like crops the middle down just so you get like a nice crisp 1080p.
Yeah.
So like the camera I had prior, I mean, it's still sitting here. It's a Canon XA10, and like it's not a slouch camera by any means, but like it caps at 1080. And I was finding there was a lot of times like I'd want to like zoom in on a face, and like suddenly I'm giving you like, 720p video blown up, and it's just, it just loses quality, right?
Artifacty and weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean like software interpolation is better than it used to be, but it's still not the same as just having a nice crisp source, right?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was like, so when I started this YouTube channel, it was all going to be hobby videos, and I didn't want to do really tutorials. I just wanted to like document the stuff that I was doing.
Yep.
And like when I had a pointer, like, hey, this is how you do like true metallic metals in a way that's easier. And so like I had just upgraded to like the new Samsung phone, which has this monster camera. This fucking camera sucks. Like it is blown out all the time. It's a really sensitive, and so like if you don't have a tripod and you don't have it like set up and focus, it's this nightmare. Like my S9 takes better video because it's just like a crappier camera, and there's like a little bit more wiggle room in it. But this one, it shows literally every wrinkle, it's just kind of too much, and you're just like,
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I just spent all this money on this phone when I should have just got a goddamn camera. So
yeah, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, so you've been doing YouTube a lot longer than I realized.
Yeah,
like a lot longer. And
like I've been around since the partner program launched. Like that's how long I've been on YouTube.
How long ago was that?
I started my channel in 2009, and before that I was doing videos for Mini Wargaming on their channel, so that was 2008 or 7.
Oh wow. So you were like,
I'm pushing over a decade at this point on the channel. I took some time off in the middle. That's why like there's a lot of videos like 2009, 2010, 2011, and then I took like 5 years off.
Right.
And then yeah.
What was the landscape like back then? Because like I remember YouTube, but
it was so different back then. There was like me, Lester Bursley, and like Jawa Balls, and that was it. There was like 4 hobby channels, and like I thought that maybe getting like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers was going to be like the ceiling at the point, right?
Right.
There wasn't because there wasn't a community there, right? There wasn't other people to like even feed your channel.
Right. Well, and YouTube was like, it felt like a like I didn't even know the meme but that was like, it was a meme. And so it was like 3-second, 3-minute videos of like, let's get some shoes. It was all like, vintage internet now, which is really funny to think about.
Yeah.
So Mini Wargaming was doing YouTube all the way back then?
Yeah, they launched their store. So the whole reason I'm in this hobby is because of them. I actually worked for, if we want to go all the way back to the very beginning, like 2007, I worked for Matt, who owns Mini Wargaming. I worked for him under another company he owned, which was called Glanfield Marketing. It was like an online marketing company.
Okay.
And I was a software developer for him. And he and Dave started Mini Wargaming basically like out of his basement while I was also working out of his basement.
Uh-huh.
And I just basically got into it through osmosis because like they're shipping and receiving like Games Workshop stuff in and out. And he just like accidentally like left a Necron Battle Force on my desk one weekend. And I just literally got into it just because of that. And then he had me come on to Mini Wargaming to just help set up their website. And then found out I was kind of moderately okay. Like that, I hadn't even touched Warhammer prior to that, right? Like that was my first inclusion in the hobby, was like 2007. Found out I was like not bad at painting. And then some people at our local club were like, hey, can you paint my stuff too? And that's just when I started commission painting, just because someone asked me to.
Right.
Like so, it was never making like commission painting, making, doing art, doing tutorials was like never like on my career path, right? At the time. Like I had never
Did you do any art stuff before, or is it just
no?
Like,
I was cool. I wish I had. I've got a lot of regrets about what I haven't done in the past, but there's not much point in keeping those. But
sure,
it's I was really focused through. I fell in love with computer programming when I was like 6 years old, and I was always good at art, but I always like treated it as a hobby. I never really like saw it as a career focus. And so I focused on anything that would like make me a better computer programmer all through like high school and up into college and stuff like that. And it was. I hit that job. I, did it well, but the art just kind of was like always like a background thing I did.
Sure.
One has sort of like replaced the other as far as like what like importance, right? It's just
right.
One has just continually grown as an interest. The other one's kind of withered.
Sure.
Hey, can we pause for just 1 sec? My kid is going nuts here.
Absolutely.
I will be right back.
All right. Since we're here.
So are we starting from the beginning, or are we going to pretend like the first 5 minutes worked?
Here's how I'm going to look at what happened last time. Like we got warmed up, we got to know each other, and we had a little fun, and then life got in the way, and now we get to do it again. But fair. In the meantime, we did have more like Facebook interactions. Yep. So I think that can help dictate a lot of what's going to happen here. I do want to continue hearing the rest of the story of how art out of high school turned into computer programming, turned into you like
oh yeah, I'll tell that story 100 times. Don't worry, you're not gonna
right. Yeah. But like I think that's an interesting thing that like high school, none of those things are really nurtured in any of us, like, and our parents are all like, hey, don't follow your dreams, get a good job. and they're probably pretty like good for doing
almost
that.
Verbatim what I heard. So, almost verbatim. Yeah.
Did you go to school to do like computer stuff after?
Yeah, I went to university for, well, actually, why don't we just record that on the show? Let's just
yeah,
we're gonna tell it in a few minutes. I might as well not tell it twice.
Oh well, no, we're recording. It's happening.
Oh, I didn't realize you started. Okay,
this is how we go. We're
okay. I didn't realize you'd hit record.
We're not counting off. We're just doing it. Doing it live.
We're just doing it live. Okay, yeah. So basically, my original plan. So in Ontario and Canada, we have basically high school. It's not there anymore, but there used to be an optional 5th year if you're going to university.
Okay.
Because in Canada, colleges and universities aren't the same thing.
Okay.
Colleges are more like trade schools. Universities are more higher education, doctorates, and that kind of thing, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And so if you only want to like go into trades, you only do 4 years of high school. If you wanted to do, further education than that, you did 5. But you could, by like taking no breaks and just being a brown noser, you could basically get that 5 years done in 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so my original plan was like, hey, yeah, I'm gung ho about like engineering, yay, rah, rah, rah. I want to be a computer guy. And my original plan was to do it all in 4 years. And then I kind of decided that wasn't attainable for different reasons.
Sure.
Did the full 5-year thing, and I spent like half of my 5th year mentoring other people though, because I had like most of my 5th year was empty because I had compressed so much of it down in the first place, but I still need like 3 or 4 credits.
Nice.
So I spent most of it tutoring when I probably should be a teacher, and that was probably a really good decision, but ended up going into computer engineering because that's what I had been trying to do since I was like 6. Hey, you've got this path, you just go with it, right?
Sure. I mean, and like that is, and you and I have got to be about the same age, I'm guessing. Like
39.
39. I'm 37, so yeah, we're pretty close.
Close enough, yeah.
That was literally all anybody could talk about for us growing up, and I took the Cisco computer networking courses because that was going to be my whole thing. I was going to be a network administrator and build like big servers, and I was like, fuck this, I hate every part of this, and like literally anybody who touched a computer became my enemy. And like I had like a period of being a Luddite afterwards. I was like, I don't want any technology in my life.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm kind of at the Luddite stage right now, more or less.
No.
Like, so anyway, long story short is I went to university for computer engineering, did about 1.5 years of it, and just like could not see myself doing it professionally.
Sure.
So dropped out, moved home, worked a bunch of random jobs, eventually ended up doing IT support anyway, and that eventually became computer programming. So I just ended up in the same, because I had aptitude for it, right?
Right.
This whole time though, I didn't even know wargaming was a thing. I collected hero clicks, and the stupid part is I bought them from a store that sold Warhammer. And the guy never tried to sell me Warhammer. And what they had is they had a glass display case in the store, regular IKEA Detolf, like everyone has. And it was full of unpainted metal orcs. And it's like, that doesn't sell anything, right? Like, no one wants to see 200 little metal dudes just glued to their bases. So I would go in there and I'd look at the display case and be like, this is effing stupid. Like, why would anyone want to spend money on this? Because I had never once seen one painted. I didn't even know there was an artistic side to it. I thought it was just like march your plastic dudes across the table.
And if you'd ever watched anybody try to play Warhammer at that time and try to explain it to you, like I got into HeroClix and like we were like, this is too crunchy for us. Like, and like that was like the bonehead simple game, Like, you could have never convinced me that Warhammer was a fun thing until
right. And that would have been 2nd edition-ish.
Right.
Right. So yeah. What I understand, I would probably have not enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed the artistic. So that's the thing is like through all this though, like I didn't take art in high school because I was just so hyper focused on this computer programming thing. So like I didn't really make art a part of my education. I just did it because it was something fun to do. And like that was my mentality was right. It was like art's a hobby.
Yeah.
And then so this long roundabout story, I ended up working for a company called Glanfield Marketing. And working out of a guy's basement. The guy is Matthew Glanfield, and if you know him, he's the guy that owns Mini Wargaming.
Right.
So he used to have a marketing company, and there was like 4 or 5 programmers working out of his basement. And then he and Dave, one weekend, were off at a local mall and got introduced to the Lord of the Rings battle game by a GW employee. And they loved it so much they decided they wanted to start marketing it. Just take his internet business mentality and kind of like apply it to Warhammer.
Sure.
And this is 2007, so like there's a lot of room for that because it hasn't really been done yet, right?
Right. And GW still hasn't done anything with that brand, like
they're doing better than they did back then, but but yeah, so then basically I got into Warhammer through osmosis because as Mini Wargaming started, growing, he was shipping and receiving out of the same space I was just working out of because he had one office for both businesses. And then it just got to the point where Mini Wargaming needed a programmer, so he peeled me off one business and put me on the other business, and then eventually just shut down the first business.
Well, wasn't Mini Wargaming doing like bits and conversions, and you could buy like single models? Like they were the like.
That wasn't them.
No, that wasn't them. Because like
that was War Story used to do bits. Are you thinking Blue Table Painting?
I don't know. So like I've heard a bunch of like like spiky bits. That's where the name came from. Like
of course.
Like people breaking up all the pieces. Like I knew that they were selling a bunch of Warhammer stuff, and I remember that there was like a big to do when they couldn't sell it anymore, and they had to basically change from being like a store to a content creation
So
thing.
that happened. Yeah, I actually still worked there part-time when that happened.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was something. It was just a regulation GW had where you couldn't sell outside the territory your brick and mortar store served or something like that.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
It actually
that's
turned out it's actually against the law in Canada to do that, but then they just, yeah. Long story short, like, so there was actually a court ruling, kind of related but not related. So there was a lady out in Saskatchewan. If you don't know Saskatchewan, it's a giant grain field with like one town in the middle of it, right?
Right.
And she sold quilting supplies online. And the quilting company was like, well, no, you have to sell to your local community. You can't sell to X, Y, and Z. And she said, I have no there is no local community. There's 500 people here. And she took it to court and she actually won. And they basically said, no, you, like, if you supply someone with product, you can't then tell them how they sell that product, right?
Right.
So that was actually kind of going on at the same time. And so eventually what ended up happening is GW had to roll back their restrictions on people selling stuff online, but they had been in place long enough that everyone either shut down their stores or found something else to do anyway.
Right. Or somebody else had filled the voids, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, wargaming is not cigarettes and or tobacco and or firearms.
Right.
You know, like it's,
I mean, like, if you're somewhere like Toronto where you've got 5 million people, yeah, you can sell to your local community, but
easy.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing where it's niche enough that any third or secondary market you can add is huge value to your business, right?
Right. This seems so weird. Like, I'll never understand the business side of GW. Like, they do some really amazing things. Like the models are cool. The fact that they, you know, support things long past what, you know, like the fact that they're still supporting Titanicus kind of blows me away. I figured they already would have ran away from that. You know, the Forge World stuff, you know, like it almost doesn't make any sense, but yet they will back their products for as long as it makes sense. But I will never understand, you know, the restrictions, and, you know, like, then you have people like, you know, Miniature Market, which is in my backyard, and they sell to everybody, I think, in the continental United States.
Yeah, I mean, I've ordered from them up here because they just have things that I can't get from, like, no one in Canada has any Dark Age stock. Just
right.
Period. None. Right. Like,
and they and they're cheap. Like, they are 15 to 20% under everyone else. And like, it seems like that's one of those things that, like, GW, like, they lock their prices with like their little wiggle room. Like, Miniature Market sells it for as low as they possibly can, and
I think they sell GW stuff basically at cost as a loss leader. Like,
sometimes, for sure,
they have so much other product, they're just kind of, you know.
But I mean, like, the markup on some of that stuff is actually really surprising. I've got a buddy who works in the office. He runs their Amazon like thing, and it's interesting to find out, like, you know, oh, we bought like 3,000 too many of this one game. Like, figure out a way to get rid of it because we can't move it online. And so, like, they do all sorts of really interesting things that, you know, just no other company will ever be able to do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So
when you were doing, like, introduced into wargaming, introduced into Warhammer, like, was art still a hobby for you at that point?
Yeah, I was doing mostly digital art back then. I was doing just some I used to play a lot of City of Heroes. So I did like character art and stuff like that for that game. Some random like Star Wars fan art, and just like drew my own like comic book characters, like nothing really substantial. Didn't go anywhere with it. It was just something I did for fun, right?
Sure.
I used to do like painting model kits as well, you know, painting like F-16 Tomcats and like the Starship Enterprise and stuff like that. So like, the idea of painting a model was like not foreign to me. Just the idea of painting a model and playing games with it.
Right.
So so then what happened? So long story short is I picked up a Necron Battle Force because it had literally sat on my desk one weekend while I was working, and I just went, okay, fine, I'll just bite the bullet and get into it. Yeah. And it's Necrons, and this is 4th edition. Yeah. So you paint them bolt gun and it takes you 4 hours, right? Like, it's easy. So I came in like 2 days later with a fully painted Necron Battle Force, played some games, and, you know, that got everything kind of steamrolling. But what happened is I came in, like, so I went from having never painted anything to being a commission painter in like 2 weeks. Because what happened is I came in with this like fully painted Necron army, and we went, "Wow, you did that really, really fast. Can I pay you to paint my stuff?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem. Pay me what you think is fair, because I have no idea."
Right.
You know, it was like the first thing I ever did. So first army painted for someone else was Tau, which I learned Tau take a lot longer to paint than Necrons do. Didn't really think that through at the time.
Yes, they do.
So I told him it'd be done in like a week. It took about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Learned some hard lessons right off the bat, but
It's
it
that
just
first
happened
one.
from there, right? It was just the local guys at the store were like, "Hey, I'm having trouble painting this," and they just handed stuff off to me, and it just sort of was a very organic process, right?
Nice. So were you did commission painting ever take like a role of like full-time job for you? Is that something that you
On and off. I did
transitioned
it.
into?
So what happened is about 2 years later, Mini Wargaming didn't need a full-time computer programmer anymore.
Right.
So they downsized me out of the business, and I stayed on as a contractor. They needed like maybe 10 to 15 hours a week of maintenance on it. So
Sure.
the other 25 hours a week I was doing painting. So it was I mean, close to, it was certainly the core of my business at that point, was painting for other people.
Yeah.
And that's when Epic Duck Studios started, because before that I was painting kind of under Mini Wargaming's banner. I was still billing kind of people separately, but it was convoluted. They got paid through their store, and then they just forwarded me the cash kind of thing. Right?
Sure.
But then so when they, we parted ways but didn't part ways, because I still worked out of their office but on my own business. It was a really sweet deal for me. That just started Epic Duck Studios, and so people always ask me where the name comes from, and I'm sure that's probably your next question.
I mean, like, it's very fun, and I grew up in the Northwest where everything was fucking mallard, so I'm like,
there you go. Fair enough.
Mine could have been Killer Beaver or some shit if I was still in Oregon.
Fair enough. Yeah. So just because I'm not explaining it to other people, right? Even if you don't care, other people will care.
No, I care. I care.
I know you do. So it actually also ties back to playing City of Heroes, because in City of Heroes you had to have unique character names to create a new character, right?
Sure.
And I basically, one of my first characters, just as a joke, there was like a gas mask that you could put on the characters, and if you made it orange, it looked like a duckbill, just the way it was modeled, because it was like really low poly back in the day, right? There was like 25 polygons in the whole thing. And so one of my first characters was named Duck L'Orange. And after that, just when I went to make a new character, I just almost always made them a duck, because it just guaranteed the character names were going to be available. And so I had like 25 or 30 different duck-themed superheroes I played, and they were the Epic Ducks, right? So I went to start a business, I'm like,
Epic Duck. Perfect.
It's already part of my personality as far as these people are concerned. Let's just make these people think the same thing, right?
The funny thing is, like, I have never looked at any content creator and been like, I don't understand this name, besides Black Magic Craft. Like Jeremy's, like, I'm like, that dude worships like 100% less Satan than I would imagine somebody with a name like Black Magic Craft. Like everybody else, Miniac, I get it. Tabletop Minions, I get it. But like everybody, it just like it's never a thing. And I appreciate like the creativity, because there's that, like, I don't, when you have the carbon copy of each content creator, I've always liked that you have stood out among the rest, which is, one of the reasons why your YouTube channel, like when I first started learning painting, was one that really stood out to me. And I don't know if I said this the last time that we were talking, but talking to you is kind of the culmination of all of my influences that I have wanted to talk to, who have helped me,
That's awesome.
get over humps. Like, if it wasn't for you, I would still, I don't know if I'd still be fighting with, crappy synthetic brushes, but you told me which, like, it's like, I was watching you draw like really great, precise black ink lines, doing all your comic book style. I was like, how do you do this? Like, I literally make a horrible mess of this every time. Like, you just gotta get a good brush and like get someone with a good point. It's like, what are you using? You're like, I'm using these ones right now, and I was like, I'm buying those. And I'm still using them to this day. That the Hanover Series 33 is
nice. Yeah, the Hanovers are nice.
Go-to brush. They're very easy. So like, thank you so much for all of your help and the guidance of like, you know, I messaged you. I was probably close to 1 or 2 in the morning. I was like, I am having troubles. And I think you got back to me in the morning or something. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Usually by 1 o'clock, I'm kind of checked out, but I usually check back in by like 7. So
yeah, yeah. But the thing that like strikes me with your YouTube channel and what we have been talking to is you
Yeah.
have been doing this for a really long time. Like
yeah,
way
basically
longer
since
than
like
anybody
YouTube
else.
partnership was like even a thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, that boggles my mind. And I went back and I just started scrolling. I was like, oh, this just keeps on going. And like you have had a ton of different phases, from tutorials to bat reps to like, it's really interesting. Like you've been doing things like before I think things were probably a thing on YouTube.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. There was like I say, back when I started, I think on YouTube, like obviously Mini Wargame was there because I helped put them there. But besides them, there was like Lester Bursley and Jawa Balls and Blue Tail
Yeah.
Painting, and I
Yeah.
can't think of anyone else.
And Lester
I'm sure
Bursley
there,
was
like I guarantee there were other people, but like
what
off
wasn't
the top of my head, I
Lester
can think of like 4 names.
wasn't he the like scale model guy that did like all the like busts and stuff like that?
No,
It was more
which
like
one? Sorry,
Lester Bursley.
he. So I actually don't remember what he painted back then. What he's famous for in my little microcosm is he's the reason I'm bald.
He's the reason
So
you're
the
bald.
story there is that I was raising money for Big Brothers Big Sisters in my area at one point.
Uh-huh.
And I threw up a video on YouTube saying like, hey, you know, here's the link, donate. If I hit $100 in donations, I'll shave my head. And
He's like,
5 minutes later, Lester pops in, drops $100, and like, okay. And I've just been shaving it ever since. So yeah.
that's pretty fantastic. That's I
It
mean,
is, but then the funny part is everyone else saw, oh, we hit the $100 goal and just like didn't bother donating. Like I had one
Aw.
donation for $100 and that was it. It's like, really? No one else could top that up?
dude, you just gotta aim higher, you know.
I know.
Like or treat it like the ALS thing, you know, like no, you shave your head and you don't donate to this thing.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing back then. People didn't use video that way, you know.
Yeah, well, so that's to me, content creation. I've been a musician literally my entire cognizant life, basically. I have been playing music since I was like 14 years old, and in bands since I was 16, and I could drive. Content creation has been part of it, and getting your name out there and beating the streets and doing the networking and doing all that stuff is impossible and weird, and it's something that you chase for forever, and then every 6 months to a year the format changes, and then you have to get a MySpace page, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do that. And you're like, what the hell am I chasing anymore? And you have seen many different formats of what YouTube is. Like people that are used to YouTube now, but YouTube then was very different.
Yeah,
it was very different.
Back then, YouTube, like things weren't really discoverable on YouTube. You really relied on having your content elsewhere and driving people to your YouTube. Like, and when someone was in your channel, they were in your channel because there wasn't like anywhere else to go.
Right.
It was sort of like if they got to your videos and then like YouTube suggestion was a random mash of crap because the algorithms were garbage back then.
Well, and it was a little bit more customizable.
Still garbage now, but they at least like give you related garbage.
Right, related garbage. I mean, like I'm hoping one of those days those related garbages point someone to me and like all. It seems like the chase of the algorithm is like infinitely the like thing that you want to do all the time, but also like it feels like like the wrong way to interface with this.
I stopped at some point. Now, I mean, I will admit I don't have the biggest YouTube channel. I've got coming up on 18,000 subscribers, which I thought was good until you look at like Maniac and he's hitting like 280K or something. Like,
yeah,
you know.
But I mean, like 18,000 is nothing.
It's respectable. But the other thing is, like, I've been doing it since 2009. I probably like. So here's the problem: is I've been doing it since 2009, but I also took like 5 years off in the middle.
Right.
Like I made videos pretty religiously from like 2009 to 2012, and then I had a career change. I actually went and worked for a building automation company for a while, which is like the computer controls on air conditioners and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Because I hit a spell where commission painting just kind of like dropped off a little bit, and I just needed some other work, and then that became a career for a while. Got me back into computer programming again. and I'm kind of phasing. So I'm at that point that I was back in like 2009 again. I'm kind of like phasing it back out and going back into like more and more commission work and less programming work.
Right.
It's kind of like doing this, like, it is not a direct path.
Right. Well, and I don't think it ever is. I mean,
No.
like, having a Miniac and a Squidmar and stuff like that to look at, Guy from Midwinter Minis, like, I love their channels. They're fucking flukes, like 100% flukes. And like, they will tell you what they did, because I think all of them probably have a little bit of survivor's guilt that they've done it, and they want everybody else to come with them.
Right.
But like,
for sure,
you could copy them 100%, but you're
and
not
be where they are. Yeah,
not be where they are. And like, so I just added you to the YouTube Brain Trust, because the Brain Trust for me is a really interesting place where I'm, keeps my finger close to the pulse.
Yeah.
Be like seeing what everybody's doing, but my game has always been find out what everybody else is doing and do the exact opposite. like just do the exact opposite, because you may not hit, but at least the gains that you get, that you won't be, the audience will be there, and they'll be way more loyal because they aren't following a trend or anything.
For sure.
And so that's been like a really interesting thing, watching everybody work for the same things, and you'll just like hear the same ideas come up of how to grow a channel. And for someone like you have to have like seen these things like in like some real spikes and some real growth. And there's many different periods.
Yeah, for sure. The month contrast paint came out. I've got some good friends in the industry, and I just managed to get them like a week ahead of time.
Sure.
And I pumped out like 30 videos in like 4 days. Like, I just didn't go to work, and I was just like, hey, here's how the blue one works. Hey, here's how the red one works. Like, and I was posting like 6 videos a day.
Yeah.
And I lost like some subscribers because people were like, hey, you're spamming my channel, what's going on? But then like I gained 700 in like 2 days.
Right.
Someone's like, okay, well, the guys that left, like, okay, it's a numbers game, fine.
Yeah.
Right. It was my financially, it was my best month ever on YouTube. True. The one thing I find really funny, last time I looked, my contrast paint video, like the one where I just review the whole set of them, actually had more views than Miniacs, which is just weird. Like, that I have that one little stamp I can kind of like put up, right?
Sure.
I don't know if it's still the case. Like, it was like 6 months ago last time I looked, but it was just like, hey, that's really, really strange. Because the funny thing is, though, like that video, like I still get probably like 100 views a day on that one video.
Yeah.
But it doesn't translate to views anywhere else on my channel. Like, people don't come into that video and then like, I'm gonna go see what comic style painting's about. Like, that's not a thing, right?
Right. So was finding styles for you like the thing that got you like really crunchy into the painting, or is that something that just kind of happened? Because like I watched you doing, there's the 2-tone red, yellow Space Marine that was like paint by the numbers or whatever you called it, and then you did like comic book style on this elf thing, and that was like the one where I was like, holy shit, whoa, what is this?
So what happened with comic book style? So let's just go on that whole topic for a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So I was just painting like kind of like the very up until that point, more or less like the typical like GW method, right? Like base coat, shade, highlight, edge highlight, blah blah blah. And my whole channel philosophy has always really been about just helping people like learn to enjoy painting who maybe don't.
Yeah.
And that's why every single video I more or less treat it like the first video someone's ever watched. Like, I never really assume someone knows anything I'm talking about, right?
Right.
And so every single video, and like, it's a bit of a detriment in a way, because it doesn't mean that I can't jump in and be like, hey, we're going to talk about non-metallic blending. I assume you know something about, wet brushing or whatever. Like, I don't have that. I'm always just like, hey, so this is exactly what I'm doing. And I narrate every single thing from start to finish as best I can. Anyway, so I was kind of doing always just like this sort of like GW procedural sort of style painting. And that's where I had the paint by numbers series I was doing for a while. And there's plans to revisit that because it actually performed really well just from like a metrics point of view.
Sure.
Where I would take like the one you were talking about was the Howling Griffin Space Marine. So I'm just like, hey, it's a quartered color scheme on a Marine, which is difficult to do. So let's talk about the red side. Let's talk about the yellow side. Let's talk about the trim. Let's talk about the bolter, right? And that was like 4 or 5 videos.
Yeah, I think it was 7. It was.
I think it was 7. Yeah, I think it was 7.
Yeah, I remember watching the whole thing and I'd be like, I am never gonna do this, but like this was a fascinating process to watch this happen.
And then so the last one I did with that was doing the Cypher Lords, and I actually still have to do the last video in that series because like I just got really burned out on it.
Sure.
But then so Adepticon 2018, I got to Adepticon for the first time.
Okay.
And got introduced to a game called Relic Blade. And that's where half of those comic style painting videos are from on my channel. But so the thing with Relic, I've actually got the models or the rule book right here on my desk. The guy that makes it is a comic book artist by trade. And like it comes through in his art, right? It's all like every single character has hand-drawn artwork on their card. The blister packs don't have pictures of models. They just have like hand-drawn illustrations of the characters in the blister pack.
Yeah.
And so when I got home, I'm just like, I bought a couple models from the games. They looked really cool. I have some friends that were actually like contributors on the game and stuff. So it was, you know, just a kind of way to like feed back to like parts of my own community in a way too, right?
Sure.
And then, but I got home and I was like, I really want to paint these the way the artist drew them. Right. And that's just, that was like the instant where just like everything started. It was like, I want to paint these the way the artist drew them. And so I started trying to, my first thought was like, okay, so I need to start with, you know, like a paper white model. So I primed the first one white, then even like took it whiter with, you know, titanium white inks. And then I started laying in all my really vibrant colors and then put the black ink on top, right? That's like that last step. And refine that process a little bit. And then like, I just fell in love with doing it because other people weren't.
Yeah.
Like there's a handful, like it's funny. I've got the comic style Facebook group now. Is at like 1,500 people or something.
Nice.
It's like 4 times bigger than my like Epic Duck group is. It's crazy. But then it's starting to incorporate people. Like there's some people in Japan that do Gundams in that style.
Oh, dude.
And a guy in the Philippines
Gundams,
that does like Transformers repaints and stuff like that. And they're starting to contribute to the group now.
Oh, good. Yeah,
and it's because it's very tangent to what I'm doing, right? It's taking something that looks like a printed page and applying it to a miniature or to
of course,
some kind of scale model. But yeah, so that just sort of, it became something I liked doing. I did it for myself.
Sure.
And that's ultimately the thing I've always done is I paint, like, you'll never see me really paint armies. I'm doing one right now because I just kind of need the money.
Sure.
But for the most part, like I don't even play 40K anymore because I don't want to paint an army for myself. Right? Like I like painting individual characters and occasionally small squads.
Sure.
And it's just because I enjoy the process of painting, but not the like batch paint. Paint the same left boot 25 times is not an appealing process to me, right?
It's horrible. I have 5 Warhammer armies and 2 Conquest armies, and I have all this stuff here, and I'm like, I hate this. Like I like playing the games, but I hate doing this.
Yeah.
And like,
I get it.
I'll sit here and like this is my resin beast that I've been working on. I've been working on this guy for like, 3 weeks now, and I'm like, just like, I'm about halfway through it, and I'm like getting real crunchy with it, and I'm like, this is what I like.
A little more enjoyable, a little more therapeutic, right? Like you kind of, I don't know. There's something different about painting individual figures because you don't really have to worry about them meshing to other things as well, right? You get a little more freedom, a little more artistic room, I guess.
And you can actually try things, the fact that like, the unit cohesion sort of look, which, like I get it, but like, I think we could be a little bit more loose with it. I think we could stop being so like, when you look at things like Stiff Neck Studios and shit like that, those guys are amazing army painters doing full on like great blends and stuff. Like that stuff's amazing. But like, if this was a real army in the real muck, they would be in different stages of like beat up and or like you could get away with quite a bit. And
you can get away with a little more variety than we typically include.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And it's like I think that's why Guy and his Sandstone Necron army did so well, is because it basically was an FU to anybody who was like, everything needs to look exactly the same. He's like, I can totally take these models and I can cover them in grime and then like just do some blue highlights on it and walk away. And
there
like,
you go.
And like it totally paid off for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
His channel blew up after 3 videos, which is unbelievable. And I don't think he ever could have guessed that would have happened.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So the comic book style, the thing that I like that you said, I think in like the first one that you did, was you took all of your highlights up to almost white, like,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things that I think, and when you think about comic books and the way cell shading is, we are way too too saturated in color on a lot of our highlights to actually get like the highest point. And like when you're talking about little 25 or 28 mil models, like you taught me the value of like amazing contrast, like
Yeah.
white to black contrast.
Well, that's the thing is like, yeah, comic book style painting, like you literally have like that 100% range of contrast in it, right? Like you can't do better. And what I love about it, like I can walk into my room, like this studio here, if I turn the lights off, it's, you know, basically pitch black, and I can still see my comic book style models from across the room because the shapes are defined so well by those highlights.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
you know, it's just and it's cool. Like you get them in a display case or on a gaming table, and like the guy 2 tables over can see what you're doing still. Whereas like if you've got,
Right.
you know, your blue Marines with their Agrax Earthshade wash on them, they just like start to fall into the table at some point, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I've seen some like really interesting Space Marine armies that like individually you look at them and they're like pretty cool. The second you set them down in a glob on the table, because they are so like, you know, like the null oiled down, like they
Yeah.
don't have that, like they no longer pop, and you can't really tell what's going on. And
I've
like,
I've definitely played games where I've forgotten a model on the table because it was just too drab.
yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, I literally forgot to shoot with that guy for 3 turns because he looks like the building he's standing on. Like,
right. I was playing Tyranids once, and somebody was having problems with their Tyranids matching the MDF, and I was just like, it was what I won the game, and so like I'm gonna be like, hey, sorry, dude, but like I knew
Yeah.
it was because he was going in there where like I was playing with like a gray, you know, Zenithal primed army, and then like all my like you know, my Slaneshi models, I just like sprayed ink over them, so they were
Okay.
like neon purple and neon pink, like they were so bright on the table.
You did not
like,
forget them. No.
did not forget them. Yeah, and so it was like one of those things that like his disappeared into the rubble, and mine I was just like, okay, if I can get this to string like these two, between these two things.
Yeah. But that's been one of the things, like, because I've taught comic style painting. I taught it at Adepticon, not this year, obviously, because this year didn't
Right.
happen, but I taught it the previous year and then at Gen Con online this year.
Sure.
And it's kind of one of the things I tell people is like, even if you try this style of painting, you don't love it, you know, either it's too time consuming, it's just not for you because you're not a comic book fan, or it's just too technical, whatever. There's a lot of lessons you can learn from it, like learning about just pushing your contrast, super saturating your colors.
Well, and you took like some of those Monster Apocalypse models that you did, like I kind of like I like Privateer Press. I think that they I really hope they have a really strong comeback with, you know, the new game that they're putting out.
Yes.
You know,
Warcaster. There's some in front of me
Warcaster,
right now.
Yeah, there. Yeah, I was like trying to remember it. I was like, it's not Warjack, but it's like in that zone.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see them do stuff. I don't like a monoculture, you know, playing field, and there needs to be more cool sci-fi stuff. But like some of the Monster Apocalypse stuff, I was like, I don't know what these are supposed to be. And then when I saw you do your comic book stuff, I was like, this is the only way I want to see these models. Like it kind of needed them, and like it needed that, like you know, like it made that game seem a lot more fun. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what's fun about that too is, so Monster Apocalypse, so this is actually the second edition of Monster Apocalypse that's out now, right? So it used to be a collectible blind box game back in 2009, 2010, and it launched with a comic book.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, there was actually it was a 3 or 6 issue run, like just ran along the release of the game, right? So I've got a couple issues kicking around here, and so I actually went back to them for reference.
Just like, this was this.
Yeah, but they fit the comic book aesthetic really well, because like at some point they tied into a comic, you know.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, that aesthetic, I find, as long as the model's not too busy, you can basically make it work. You know?
Yeah.
I've done Marines in it. I don't love doing Marines in it because they have a lot of panel on you. It really bogs down just from a time perspective. They take a long time to do. Yeah. But they still look good.
I mean, you would almost want to like do that one more in the like cell shaded style, like how the Gundams are doing it.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting, you know, I'm glad that you brought up Gundams, because I'm finding myself leaning more towards like, I don't want to only do Gundams, but like I like what scale modeling and Gunpla is bringing to my hobby, and like the
Right.
lessons that I'm learning from them are being used in other ways. And like
Yeah.
right now I'm doing a cell shaded like grim dark Gunpla. Like it looks
Nice.
really gnarly, and I just need to get back into it because like it's been really fun to try out something like that, where I was a little nervous about doing it on like an Imperial Night. You know, like I would like to do a Night Titan.
Don't
like
do it on Imperial Night.
Don't do it. No.
I did an Adeptus Titanicus Warlord Titan in a Borderlands theme, and it took me like 45 hours, and it crushed my soul.
Oh, I bet that
It was just because the problem with GW stuff is there's bloody rivets everywhere. Everywhere.
Well, and those models are really detailed, and I don't think, I wish more people would have bought into Titanicus, because I think Titanicus had, as far as like scale modeling, it had some of the best opportunities to do really cool stuff with it. It's set up to be more modular. You can do magnets much easier.
Yep.
And they wanted you to play with it more.
Yeah.
And it just like sucks that it didn't have the same sort of stay power, because they wanted you to pay $300 for a starter. And like it sold all right, but like it didn't.
It wasn't what it could have been, because like $300 is a big ask.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think I spent $300 total for everything, as I like eBayed and got things like really cheap on sale and stuff like that, of which I sold it for more than I paid for it, like in the secondary market, because I put it all together. I was like, oh, this is cool, but nobody's going to play with me. I'm going to turn it into something else. And like I made money off of my hobby time, which was ridiculous. Like that game should have been bigger.
It would have been nice to see it get bigger.
Yeah.
The thing I found really funny is that, so when Aeronautica Imperialis came out, they really actually made a point to emphasize that it was being created at the same scale as Adeptus Titanicus.
Oh, really? I guess I missed that.
Yeah, it was in their marketing at one point. They're like, yeah, there's going to be the same scale, so they're going to be compatible. And then I'm like, so are we getting Epic again? What's happening here? And then just like, that was it.
Yeah.
But then COVID hit, so like, who knows? Like...
an Epic would be interesting, like having like 7mm Space Marines running around. Like I would like to have some stuff like that isn't just like 3D printed stuff, or like secondhand Epic things. I want to do like more diorama pieces, and it would be cool to actually have some like good GW.
I could see doing a diorama with like 7mm Space Marines. I could possibly, because like then you could fit the diorama in like a nice little shadow box, as opposed to like trying to fit it on like a desk.
Right. Well, like that,
I was like, I never want to do a diorama that's like gonna is basically furniture,
Well, what do you do with it once you've done it? I'm a big Neon Genesis Evangelion fan, and so I've got all the Gunpla that they just came out with, the RG models that are amazing. I'm like, I want to do a diorama with this, and I start looking at my like workspace. I'm like it's gonna take the entire thing. Like once I get it the way I want it, I'm gonna have to take it back actually down to the murder basement, and then I won't be able to like photograph it or stream it.
I was gonna say, it looks like you're in more of like a murder attic right now.
Unfortunately, like to do streaming, I had to move out of the basement. Like we've got this like really unfinished like floorboard ceiling that's just like it was painted with lead paint, and anytime it walks, like little pieces of lead paint fall all over you and all over your models. And while I'm all right with that, it will ruin a computer. It will absolutely ruin a computer.
100%. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll do it in the clean area.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed about your YouTube career is that like you go like big pushes, like doing the YouTube sprint is what I keep on hearing. That's
probably a good description.
Yeah. And you're doing an episode a week, sometimes two, like in the contrast one where you're just like blam blam blam, here it is. But then you would have like 5 or 6 months in between where like you'd have like one episode, and then like
come back. So those were caused by a couple of things. Like 1 or 2 of them were just burnout. Like there were definitely times where I'm just like, I'm just done for a while.
Sure.
I took like a 6-month or 8-month break when my son was born, because I just had no time or desire or
absolutely function
100% left, right? Like yeah, so there's been like, and you know, the same year, like, so we bought this house, moved into it, you know, got married, had a kid, like in a 2-year span. It's like there's a lot of like not making videos happening there,
Yeah,
right? Like it was
that's
just
a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So there was a lot of just like life happening and career changes and sometimes just lack of interest, right? So like the one I was originally really interested in the Age of Sigmar when it first released.
Sure.
And that was like 2 weeks before we moved into this house. So it was just you know, I built it, I started painting, like, oh yeah, my paints are all packed. I guess I'm not filming. And then by the time everything was unpacked and the studio was all set up again, it was like 2 months later and the hype train was over, right? Like,
right.
and that's the problem too, is a lot of the content, especially GW content, is very time sensitive.
Yeah.
And also isn't. Like, that's the weird part, is like, you want to paint, you know, the Indominus Necrons the week before Indominus is available, ideally, but the week after is like second most ideally.
Right.
But a tutorial on how to paint Salamander Space Marines will get 10,000 views a month for the next 200 years. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's just Space Marines, and like,
right.
Like Scott, you know, Miniac will say it. He's like, you know, like the heavy metal series that he did is part of the reason why he's as big as he is. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. And he was like, it was.
No, and I get it. And so the thing is, what I've discovered is, so I've basically spent the last 2 years almost doing comic style exclusively.
Yeah.
Except for the kind of the contrast push. That was just like a flash in the pan kind of thing.
Sure.
And part of that was because like I just really fell in love with it, and I wanted to do the things I love because I feel it makes like a more genuinely watchable video.
Of course.
But it also made these hyper targeted videos. Like, here's how I paint a model from Relic Blade, which is like a niche game in the first place. There's 10,000 players worldwide, right?
Right.
And I'm painting one specific model from one faction in a certain style. Right. And like, there's like 500 viewers for that video. Right.
And you found them all.
I found every single one of them 5 times over. Like I did well enough. Like, just to compare it, like I did Captain America in comic style, and that video is just hitting a year old now.
Yeah.
And it's at like 120,000 views. Like compared to like my, you know, Relic Blade stuff, like the best Relic Blade videos are like just hitting 5 digits now, right? And they significant, most of them are older.
Right. Well,
and most of those
Captain
views
America
are probably just coming from playlist recommendations, I think.
That Captain America video was, so I took kind of a break from your videos and just like I stopped kind of watching tutorial stuff online. Yeah. Because I'm kind of at that place where I'm like, am I actually learning as much as I would like, or am I just procrastinating watching fucking YouTube? And because like I do that's a problem. I love watching YouTube and I love watching, so I stopped watching like basically anything that could be tutorial content for like the last year. Yeah. And like a month or two ago the Captain America one popped up and I was like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch this one actually. And then I watched all of your Crisis Protocol ones and I was like, this is great. I'm so glad that I like watching all of these again. And like it had this whole thing that I was like, it's like, how come Epic Duck isn't bigger? Like what is it like? Why are people missing this stuff? Because these videos are really good.
So the thing is, like, I think you need the bait and you need the hook, right?
Right.
And they're the hook, but they're not the bait.
Right.
And so actually my I'm good friends with Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniature Games.
Sure, yeah.
And he's aside from being an indie game developer himself, he just absolutely loves like Relic Blade is one of his basically children, right? Like he loves the small games, he loved the indie and just like the retire games. He'll play Blood Bowl until his fingers fall off, right? Like
right.
Well, or Hero Quest, like he is so hyped for Hero Quest right now.
Right.
So he will play dead games that no one wants to play until the sun comes up.
Sure.
But he flat out admits if he did nothing but that, his channel would just die, because you need to, like, basically as a bat rep creator, you have to just throw out a bunch of 40K videos so people find your channel.
Yeah, of course. I
think painting is the exact, like, honestly, like painting is the same thing. Like I haven't thrown up a how to paint a Space Marine in like 2 years. Right.
Might be time, man. Like
I've literally got like a checklist over here, and like 3 of the 5 are
Space Marine.
yeah.
Just do a Space Marine like every quarter.
Well, and that's basically like it doesn't always have to be a Space Marine, but the thing with Space Marines is they're evergreen content.
Yeah.
Like I've got, actually it's not exactly a Space Marine, but I've got a tutorial I did, I want to say it was in like 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And it was how to make quick and easy lava bases. And it's filmed like, this is so old, it was filmed in like 480p. Like it was DVD quality, right?
I think I watched that one. Yeah.
I think everyone's watched it. But the funny thing is like, it's still like, it has no narration. So back then I just put everything in text. Like I didn't own a microphone. So I didn't even bother recording a voiceover. I just whenever I wanted to say something, I just typed it up and like threw it on the screen in, the bottom third, right?
Sure.
And like my first 20 tutorials are like that. There's no narration at all. And that video is still getting like 2,000 views a month or something.
No shit. That's
like
amazing.
That one video has made like a quarter of my YouTube income today. And it's this like crappy little like so it was like self-adhesive cork pad, and I just ripped it up in the chunks, stuck it on a base, and painted it. Like it was
right.
It was like a fluke. Like I'm just like, oh, I guess I need a video, or I needed a base for something. I'm like, I guess I'll film it while I'm at it. And it's just, and it's like that fluke video, right? You're talking about you guys like make a video, you have no idea when it's gonna you have no idea when a video is gonna blow up and when it's not.
Right. Have you been watching any of Trent's Nurgle Diaries right now?
I am not. So the one thing about being a content creator is you have very, very little time left to watch other people's content.
Right. It's a good thing it's my homework. So like I'm like, this is why I'm procrastinating on these armies. I have to learn about you guys. Yeah. But there's this thing that's happening right now, and this is like when we were having our little back and forth on Facebook Messenger, and you're like, these are the things that I wanted to pick your brain about. Like maybe there's something that I'm missing. I'm like, oh, now I'm even more excited to talk. I thought a lot about what is happening right now in YouTube and content creation.
Yeah,
and it seems like, even people like Scott are getting really fatigued on the tutorial thing and just like the procedural, this is how you do this.
Yeah.
And there's new people who are very excited about it. The Marco Frazones, fucking John Nenis is like coming in hitting hard. Sam Linz is doing it. And when you have a whole new crew of people that are just like, we're going to do it a little differently. Like I could see the tutorial game for like the old guard kind of falling off. But where Trent has kind of like shifted his focus from doing like terrain builds, he's doing like weird sculpts, but they're more like a documentary of his life at the moment. They're weird and insightful, and like sometimes almost a little uncomfortable. Like he's like, he did this one about this. It's like 1.5 minutes long, and you need to watch it. It's about his like favorite utility knife that his dad had that he wishes he had the same one. And so he modified a utility knife to have the same like thing. And it was like, by the end, it was like, I was like touched. I was actually moved by this thing. I was like, the fuck is happening here? Like that is the stuff that is, people are like gravitating towards, the more like the Dickensian aspect of the hobby. And when you hear these stories and you get to know these people, like, it feels like everybody is like on the cusp of a rebirth right now. Like the old guard that's just been doing it the same way. You feeling that? Yeah. And so like, I encourage you to watch Trent's videos. I think that there's something there that like, I don't know what it is yet, but there's there's magic happening, and I'm trying to understand it, because like I think that's where the future of content creation is going to be, especially like if there's people with better cameras or people who are going to be more funny, or there's people like, it feels like when you're fighting for that same space where everything's like totally saturated at the moment, like you have to find the thing that like makes you stick out above the rest. And like I think Trent found something, because for a while his were just videos that were just videos to me. Like I didn't think a lot about them, and now like I have thought about them like in really deep ways. Like, no, I get it. I love my dad's tools, like that sort of thing,
Yeah.
So something to think about. When did you switch over to Twitch? Because that was like what the cool thing when you like kind of disappeared out of my radar, and I started paying attention to Twitch earlier this year, and I saw you. I was like, oh fuck yeah, here he is, he's doing it. And you were that was so cool.
I experimentally switched over to Twitch about 2014. I was on there when there were not people on there, like
still called
back when Justin TV was actually still a thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing, is like I'm not like an old man, like I'm 39, like I'm not even over the hill yet, but like content wise I've been there like way too long.
You're the trailblazer, man. You're like,
and yet, so the thing is, like, I started doing Twitch. Yeah, I don't know. I did it like just kind of on and off, just as like something fun to do on like a Saturday night for a while.
Sure.
There was no schedule, and like back then, Twitch wasn't monetized. Like you just did Twitch because you felt like doing Twitch, right? It was. No one thought streaming was a career or even a way to like buy a new paint pot. Like it was just nothing. It was just a thing you did.
Right.
So I did it on and off for a while, and then it was probably about 4 years ago I started being consistent.
Okay.
And then had the kid, took a dive.
Right.
And then about 6 months, when he was about 6 months old, I started really just kind of, and he's coming up on 3 now, so it's 2.5 years, I guess. I've been really like, here's my schedule, I'm sticking to my schedule, like.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, that's actually where one of the sort of like big YouTube dives happens, is because I was just seeing so much more response to doing Twitch than I was to doing YouTube, that it just, I fell in love with the medium instead. And because the one thing, like, I will be honest, like, as much as I've made 300 or something videos, I don't love video editing.
No, it's
like it's the thing you have to do to get the product out there. It's the same as like, I don't love logistics. Like if I could pay someone to come in and help me with my business, the two things they would do is ship my stuff out and edit my videos.
Edit your videos, yeah.
Like those would be the very first two things I would offload, because like I just don't like, they're things you have to do to just like pay the bills. They're the things that get your products out there. But I'm happier just like making the raw crap and letting someone else get it, But and that's actually, so like way back when I made videos for mini wargaming, that's exactly what we did. Is I would just sit there and record. I would talk on camera, and as I was painting. And we actually had co-op students from our local high school doing the editing, because like through the co-op program.
Right.
So they would just, basically find, like, if I did like the same brushstroke 10 times, they take the first 2, cut the other 8 out, and then take the clip of the audio that made the most sense, slide it over, and they had a process that they did, and it was great because I just sat down, painted, handed them an SD card, walked away, like, I mean, but I can't really.
Interns are still a thing, man. Like you could still like, there's college students everywhere that need a, and I'm sure that YouTube is now a medium that people are like focusing on in college. Like I think you could probably get it, like especially since network TV is dying a very slow, painful death right now. Like,
well, the funny thing is, like, you can take your YouTube content and get it on like Amazon Prime easier than. It's not a difficult road now.
No, that's a weird thing that like it keeps on, like Amazon Prime keeps on recommending that I watch Super Mario Galaxy videos for some reason. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this. Like, why?
I'm like, I would normally blame a child in your household for that, but you don't have one?
No, I mean, like, I play video games, but like, I don't need to watch Super Mario Galaxy.
Like every once in a while, like I'm watching The Boys, and it's recommending I watch like Pete the Cat, and it's like, okay, that's my son's fault.
It's
like,
a kid, yeah, right.
Like I get where that came from,
right? Well, content creation and the like blending of the different genres. Like, I like Twitch. I'm an extrovert, so like Twitch actually works really well for me. Eventually I'm probably going to bounce off of Twitch, like because Twitch doesn't stick up for their people that often, and they're owned by the richest person on the planet, and I just have a problem with that. Like,
I kind of do too, but at the same time it pays enough of my bills that I like like it's that gray area where like I can't be like super morally like high groundish about this because it's half my mortgage, like
right. Well, so part of the thing that I've been wondering about, like, because like the monetization as an affiliate on Twitch, and are you Twitch partnered or are you just Twitch
just an affiliate, yeah.
So like,
don't quite have the viewership. I've got the other, like I said, there's 3 checkboxes you have to hit. I've hit the other 2 like a year and something ago.
right,
You got to have that average viewership of 75 people like consistently for a month.
and that's
It's hard. Yeah,
it's super hard. Like even getting 3 to start off for me was really frustrating. I was like, man, this is like, I just need you to turn it on and leave it in the background.
it is really weird. Like every once in a while too. So I used to do my shows on Thursday night. And that's when Critical Role came on, started doing Thursday night shows. And I went from like 30 to 50 people on a Thursday night to 6.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like it was just instantaneous. Like 90% of my audience dropped. I don't know if there was like some other paint. Like I don't know if Kenny was on at the same time now too or something. Like I didn't put a lot of research into it. I just went, at this time slot is dead. Like just end of story. Like it doesn't matter why it's dead. I'm just moving.
It just is dead. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I tried it for like 3 weeks in a row. And it's like, yeah, I've got like 6 people showing up on Thursday nights now. I don't know what's happening. And I moved to Wednesday night and it just like tripled again. Like, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know, like it's just things like either that's the night that is the night Critical Role's on. So I just assumed that's a good part of it. They tend to kind of,
I mean, they're one of the biggest media entities right now in the independent space. It's crazy what they've done and the amount of money that they've raised and their viewership. Like we all talk that like, Dungeons and Dragons is in a renaissance right now. They're the fucking reason why. Like 5th edition would have like vanished without them eventually. Like they are the reason why death saves can be a
t-shirt
windbreaker that you buy. It's like stuff like that where like nobody used to pay attention to that stuff, and like it would have its like core group, but now like people who aren't nerds are paying attention to it, which means people who aren't nerds are paying attention to minis and are paying attention to like I look at it as like untapped potential.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. And like, it feels like we are like on the cusp of becoming something way bigger, that like the art space on Twitch, the art space on YouTube, as far as miniatures are concerned, feels like we're going to be big like now.
I will say like in just over the last like maybe 2 years, it does feel like Twitch is doing a little bit of a better job promoting the art space as opposed to just like it being this sort of like little shameful corner that's down there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that they even broke it up into like, more than one channel was a nice, kind of first step at one point, right?
They could get a couple more tags or something to help funnel people to us a little better, because like scale modeling doesn't really get there. The Warhammer tag doesn't ever apply to me. And like I've been streaming on Twitch now for 6 months and I don't think I've painted any GW stuff. Like,
so here's the other thing is like I flip flop between the art tag and the Warhammer tag, and I have never seen it matter at all. Like viewership wise, like I get the exact same, give or take maybe like, error bars 5%. Like, it's not a discernible difference.
Well, it just seems so weird. You're like, like what?
Then you open up the Warhammer tag and there's guys painting, Dungeons and Dragons there. I'm like, no, be more honest.
Be more honest. But then like the Dungeons and Dragons people, like what they're painting in there, like, Kefa Paint Studios, like, he is super infrequent on his streaming, and because he caters to the D&D crowd, they are there. They ask him about games, and like he always has like 20 to 30 people, and I'm like this dude is like, he has his own weird little community, but he's getting people in from the D&D community all the time, and I'm like, I would love to have that same sort of pull with them. I don't want to do it erroneously because he can talk the talk. I cannot.
That's it. Like the last time I played, and I want to call myself a role player, but I have not played a game in like 7 years. Like it's just, and part of it is just like, so the thing is like, I mean, I've got the kid and the wife now, and like, I'm not blaming my wife whatsoever. She lets me do what I want to do.
Yeah.
But like she works at a hospital and she has to be up at like 7 a.m. every day. And so I'm basically like, I'm on self-assigned baby dude. Like right now the baby monitor's right here, right?
Right.
And that's every night. And that's because like her job is more important than mine.
Sure.
She's out there literally helping save lives, and I'm here painting toys. Like they are not on the same level. So
You're saving lives. You're saving lives.
I'm saving sanity.
Spiritually, emotionally saving lives.
Fair enough. But it's just I spend every night in this studio, and it's like I don't get out to the game store to play games that often. When I do, it's usually on an afternoon.
Yeah.
Right, because like I've got that freedom. That's the one thing Epic Duck lets me do is I do my stream, and then Fridays I screw off and go play a game.
Nice.
And then I get home and pick up the kid. Like it's, but it's a lot. Like that's the thing is like it's a lot easier to sit down and paint than it is to sit down and play. Right. Yeah. Playing requires you organizing with other people. It requires you leaving the house, coming back to the house. The dog barking when you come through the door at midnight. Like it's just, there's. And painting is come down here, just pick up my paintbrush. Like it's and so I want to say it's a rut more than anything. It's just like I paint 95% to like gaming being like 5%. Like but it just means there's nothing to like I don't often have a game to discuss, right?
I don't think that is uncommon. Like
no,
you
it's
say
not.
It like it's a rough. I think that's most painters. Even though we like to pretend that we play a lot, I don't think any of us plays near as much as we front that.
No, I think there are painters. There are painters who game. There are gamers who paint, and then there are gamers. And like,
right,
it's a spectrum, right?
Right.
I mean, like, there's guys at the other end who live at their local store, and they're either painting there or they're paying someone else to paint it, so they can just keep on playing more often.
Right. If I could figure out a way to make that work and like keep the rest of my life in balance, like that would be really fun, but I couldn't. I would spend way too much money, and I already have problems with that.
Yeah.
So what do you think the future is? Like, Twitch is going to keep on twitching, YouTube's going to keep on YouTubing. I have a friend who's just like, get on TikTok now, get ready for it. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like there's nothing.
I don't know that there's a lot of room for miniatures on TikTok.
I don't know.
Like
they don't have
people,
big enough butts.
I occasionally watch it because like my wife got me into it, and there's some really interesting like D&D joke kind of like kind of doing like live action meme kind of things.
Okay.
That translates well into like a role-playing environment, right?
Sure.
It doesn't work so well for watch me paint this tiny dude.
Well, like you could put your final product in there. Like you sent me like a video of like death metal going and then like there was a Night Titan spinning, and I was like, okay, well that's really pretty, but like I don't understand why I'm coming back to that.
And I mean, unless you're just using that to promote your Twitch and your YouTube audience, like, what are you doing with it, right? Like,
right. Well, and
like it's just another. So the problem I see with, if we want to just talk about TikTok, the problem I see with it is it's like it requires actually like a decent amount of production value. Like, it's a non like making an Instagram post takes me 35 seconds.
Right.
Making a TikTok post of that same miniature is probably like a 20-minute process, right? Like I gotta film it, gotta crop it the right size, add some, sync it up to some music, add some titles,
right? And
like that's non-trivial. Like that's now time I've spent doing something.
Yeah.
And I don't see the money coming. Like ultimately, like that's what it's a financial transaction as far as like because this is a business, right?
Yeah. Of course.
And if I spend 20 minutes making an ad, it's got to make me back, $10, or it wasn't worth the 20 minutes, right? Like,
right.
Something to that effect. And it's just I can't see, maybe if I just grab I've had like a little permanent turntable set up and just like really sit there, film it, throw the same music on it every single time. Like maybe there's a way to like automate it a little bit, but all it's gonna do is be like, hey, come watch my next Twitch video.
Right.
Like that's all I'm ever gonna do with it if I do anything with it.
It seems like if you put it in my hands, I would turn to be like a total internet troll, and I would do like vintage YouTube songs like Baby Monkey riding backwards on a pig, Baby Monkey, because like I don't really care about being cool.
Fair enough.
I would just be like, I don't get it. And especially like most of what TikTok recommends to me is so sexist and misogynistic. I'm like, fuck this platform. Like, I don't
there
get
is that.
what we're doing here. Like how is miniatures going to cut through there? But like, he was like 100% convinced that like I need to put at least a little effort into it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like maybe, but like I'll have to do some serious research on it, and I can't figure it out. The one thing that I have noticed is it seems like Patreon seems to be the place that actually makes a lot of sense for people like us. And
Yeah,
I heard you talking about that the other day on stream, that you do a Patreon. Like, how did that start getting into the mix?
So Patreon, up until like literally this month, I just basically treated it as a tip jar.
Nice.
It was basically like I had a tier that was like $1 was like, hey, say thanks, and a tier that was $5 was like, hey, say thanks, and I'll throw your name in my video credits. Like, and that was basically it. Like,
Yeah.
I recently added a $60 tier for like private coaching. It's limited to 5 people a month.
Nice.
And I had someone take it last month, and then they live in Brazil, and they're like, I can only afford to do this every 3 months because Brazil has a terrible economy. I'm like, okay,
Sure.
cool.
Yeah.
Like that. Right.
I mean, the
Fair
fact
enough.
that they want to do that once is huge.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that you know, I was talking to Impending Duff about his, you know, and he's got 30 Patreon people, and he's like so proud of it and going. And I'm like, dude, that's so good. I was talking about Casey, and he got 30. Casey from eBay Miniature Rescues, and he got 30 on his, and he was like, it wasn't as good as I was expecting. I was like, dude, you don't understand. Like, people work for years to get 30, and you got 30 right out of the gate. That's amazing. That's growth.
Yeah, I was
And,
sitting.
like,
So I mean, my Patreon page is like 2 years old now,
mhm.
and I was sitting at like 10 to 15 for the first year and a half, and it got into the high 20s.
That's awesome.
Just in the last month, it went from 31 to like 37.
That's awesome.
Oh, like that was mind-blowing growth. And like most of those were $1 patrons, but a couple weren't, you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because the $1 patrons, like, they stick around.
Yeah. Well,
Because once they're chipping a buck in, they don't care that they're chipping a buck in.
well, and they just want to tell you. They want to tell you that they believe in you, and
Yeah.
that is the stuff that, like, I just started a Patreon because I told Sam Lenz to just start a Patreon, and it didn't matter if you have content. People are going to come out and support you because you're fucking Sam Lenz. And then he was like, Heath, you were right. You should start your own Patreon. I was like, I don't really have any, like, he's like, I want to tell you what you told me. You should start a Patreon because people
Right.
will fucking support
Like,
you.
it doesn't matter if you
Like,
have
okay,
content.
fair.
Yeah.
And like the interaction on Patreon is super different than any other platform. Really, like, wholesome, and people want to like connect with you as a human being.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very different.
It is, yeah.
So
So the one
like,
thing, I've always sort of operated the philosophy that anything I teach, I want to teach freely,
sure.
which is why everything's always been either on YouTube or on Twitch, where they're very open platforms as far as, you know, consuming things go.
Of course.
This is the first month I'm doing a patron exclusive tutorial.
Nice.
And my way around that to ease my own conscience is like, so the Patreon version is like 4 hours long. It's not actually posted yet because I'm still editing it.
Wow.
But it's like it's Vision from Marvel Crisis Protocol. I'm doing like a
Uh-huh.
master class on that miniature. So it's basically start to finish every brushstroke, right?
Wow.
Including there's actually a 40-minute video up front, or 35, it was in that ballpark, where I go through a bunch of just different comic book panels and explain where I'm pulling my references from.
Nice.
And kind of distill the process of, you know, finding those references and, you know, which ones I decide to use and why I decide to use them and so on, and like, you know, identifying which elements I can bring into a model and stuff like that. So it's the first time I've really gone like just that deep into comic style, just really honed into it. But at the same time, I'm feeling this little bit of guilt because like I've always told people like all my content will always be free, and like this is the first time I'm basically lying. But you don't owe your past self anything.
No,
right?
No, and all you owe is the banker, the electric bill, the health insurance, the milkman. Like, life is expensive, and content creation, you got to figure out a way to make it.
Right. So the one thing I'm doing to ease my conscience is once the big like 4-hour cut is done, I'm going to do like a 15-minute YouTube promo cut.
Nice.
There's going to be like little bit more than a teaser, like enough that you could call it a tutorial, but not enough that like you know, like obviously
Sure.
there's more to learn, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's kind of the plan right now, is once a month make this like big Patreon specific gesture, and then a public version, right?
Well, I think
I
that's
am doing a bunch of
basically
hand gesturing and my hands are below the camera. I just noticed that. I'm just like, I'm doing like all this. I know you just see my shoulders wiggle.
Well, so I think James Waffle has a very similar sort of Patreon style. Like I think he does like a big video, or like a topic that he does like a 4-hour long
Right.
video on, and then and eventually they come to YouTube, and I think that's Sam Lenz is doing it, where like his Patreon videos like 6 months later are finally coming to YouTube. So like I think you could still do it, and you could probably break up that masterclass and
It's not a
stretch
single
that
video.
Yeah, you
don't
could
worry.
stretch that thing out like big time, which I mean would be really interesting to see, because I believe in your content. I believe in your creativity. You're a very sweet human being. It's one of those things that every time I would hop into like your Twitch and just see you talking with your audience, even if I don't interact, if I'm just lurking, hanging out, like you're just always in it, and you're always like way supportive, and I really appreciate that. Like I think we need more of that in this community, where there is the on the ground, the boots on the ground interaction, but then there needs to be that kind of like big picture growth, because like there's room for more than just one Squidmar. We just haven't found the next one yet. Like there's room for this. We just have to nurture our characters.
Yeah.
So besides the once a month things, do you have any other bigger plans that you think that you're going to try to do for the channel coming up, whether it's on Twitch or for the YouTube?
So the two other big plans is just, we talked about this a little earlier. I'm just going to probably do like a little drip feed of GW specific content, just because it brings the eyeballs into the channel. I mean, money too, but it also it gets people into the ecosystem, right? Like,
sure, of course, yeah.
Once someone's watched that, then maybe they get recommended comic style, then maybe they get hooked on that, and then suddenly like they're stuck with me. Like,
I think that's a great idea. I mean, like, I am all about, like, there's no sacred cows anymore, man.
No.
You gotta like the idea of like it has to be this thing or nothing else. Like that punk rock ideology doesn't exist in 2020.
Right.
You have to be so flexible now, and even at a certain point you might have to go backwards and say no GW, 100% this other thing. You never know. It's
which I've done in to limited success.
Right. I think that they will always be the big player.
They're always going to be the big player. The one thing I've actually just really enjoyed seeing, maybe in like the last 6 months, is because 3D printing is becoming so affordable, we're seeing a lot more people being really encouraged to paint just like completely random one-off things.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people painting busts in 75 mil, or just like stuff from like Artisan Guild and Titan Forge and whatever.
Sure.
That just, they don't fit a game, they don't fit a specific character class, they're just a thing that exists. And I think I'm seeing a lot more of that specifically on Twitch, but I mean it's hitting YouTube as well, where it's just sort of like, I'm showing you how to paint leather. It doesn't matter that it's not GW's leather, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I would, encourage you to be more like in your descriptors of your YouTube videos, like be more generic and big picture. Yeah, I mean, like maybe not bland.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Like Kenny started doing his painting brown is easy, and like it didn't matter what he was painting it on. Like it was just the fact that he was like, I use pro acryl mahogany because like I like this color and it's great.
Yeah.
Those videos seem to do all right, as far as like getting different people into his content, or like his Infinity videos where he was talking about that didn't seem to have the same sort of like pull, because Infinity doesn't have the same sort of pull, and your name isn't Angel Heraldez, like
right. Yeah,
what everybody
Yeah.
wants.
And hell, it could be like I'm painting the backside of my USB key and like 200,000 people will watch it. But
Well, you know, I've been watching him for a while, and his videos don't get the clicks that you'd think. We all just like think he's much bigger than he is.
I think so. I'm more used to encountering his stuff on Instagram,
Right.
where like he pulls numbers on Instagram, but I mean, I don't know how really that doesn't really translate to income, but
Well,
necessarily.
it keeps him as the influencer, and
It does,
you know,
yeah.
as long as he's painting box art for every Eric Lang fucking Kickstarter that comes out, the Angel Heraldez like super polished look is going to be part of what we know in our oeuvre of painting, where like I like comic book style. I like, you know, Shoshi's more like, you know, painterly brush strokes with those like green undertones. Like that's the stuff that I want to do. I want to play in those spaces. I want to be more stylistically creative, unless this is what box art is. You know, like I don't box art to me, like you might as well do it with a computer. Like and I know that that's so reductive of Angel, and someday I will probably talk to him and have to apologize about that. But I don't want things to look like
in
that.
a lot of ways, the box art, you're painting it in a lot of ways to represent a 3D render almost, right? Like,
right.
You are doing the human equivalent of digital work. I get it. Like I know what you're trying to say. Like you're not trying to downplay like the quality of it.
Very
but just that literally what you're doing is like what, you know, a laser printer should be doing for us, because like it's already been like, you know, poly painted in ZBrush, and like you're just manually reproducing that same result. And to good effect. Like we're just to be clear, neither Heath nor I are like downplaying the skill involved in doing that.
It's very difficult. and the fact that he can go back in with an airbrush after he's done all this stuff to like finish it off on those little tiny infinity models
and not just cry.
Like
I know anytime I look at a model I've already got detail on, like I don't want to put that anywhere near my airbrush.
I like it. That's a great way to start a model over again.
But to be fair, he probably gets more time on an airbrush in a week than I've had ever. So
yeah, I've got a couple of things that I want to learn from those people, and you know, like Alfonso Heraldez is like the same sort of effect, but like from a totally different zone. Like his stuff is like real brushstrokey and really intense, but because he does so many layers and steps, like it looks like computer rendering. Like there is stuff to learn from that. But I think really I encourage everybody to like find the style that they're comfortable playing in and have fun with that and explore those and push those boundaries, because you know, trying to paint like somebody else is, you know, it's a fool's errand because you're not them. You know,
trying to paint like someone else is instructional, but it's not motivating.
No. right.
like it's a thing to do. I mean, I have to like obviously have to stand it up a little bit, because I mean, Paint Like Me is kind of like the whole brand of me teaching things, I guess. But you know, you learn by recreating other people's work, but there's a point where you take it and then, you know, distill it into the things that you loved and didn't love about it. And that's why I say, like, when you're doing comic book style, maybe you're only going to love like the high saturation of it, but hate the black lines. And like, cool, take the parts you like, run with them.
Well, and that like I said, for me, out of watching your stuff, that was the stuff I was like, I like, you know, like I like 90s comics. I like Spawn. I like, you know, the colors are insane on those. It's just like, you know,
oh, it's like black and neon purple. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I liked about your style, is the fact that you did those things, and then you like gave me like an idea for like color value, and that's how I you know, still paint that way, because of your videos. And you know, like you gave me that like kind of like, yeah, just do it. This is a pretty good thing. Like always take it up brighter than you think that you need it to, because it's, once you shade it and do things, that goes away pretty fast.
And I mean, and that applies in general, right? Like that's the thing, is like, even if you're just like trying to paint boots on the ground Marines and you're going to throw a bunch of Null oil on it, Null oil is going to make your model darker. You got to start brighter than you want it to be. Like that's just that's general advice. I mean, like it very specifically applies to comic style, because like we're going to make half the model be black when we're done. But it applies generally, right? Like no matter how you're going to shade your model, you're going to make it darker, and so the bright parts need to be brighter to just kind of compensate.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you you giving those things and being as free with your tech, and I hope to see you find that nice balance in the future
too.
between paid content, free content, and because I don't know if a weekly thing is necessary to grow a huge audience, but I think if you want to be on the fast track, it has to be like a once a week, and one of them has to be clickbait a month. One of them has to be like you have to.
I think there's sort of a point where like you need that formula in the growth stage,
Yeah,
and then there's sort of like a critical mass where suddenly the formula stops mattering.
Right, and I think that's where like the big guys are right now. But they think that it still matters, and I'm like, dude, nobody gives a shit about like that. Like, just do what you want to do now. We're all here for it. Like, we are all here for your growth. And that's where I was talking with Squidmar. I think that's where he's at. I think that he can do literally whatever he wants. He could probably sit in front of a microphone and be like, just like make stupid noises on it, and I think we'd all probably show up for that.
Now if he did that consecutively for like 6 months, there could be a problem, but
yeah, it would be a problem. But I honestly think that the cult of personality around the miniature hobby is wide enough and far-reaching enough that there's room for more people, and I would love to see you get more attention on that, because I think you got
so would I. So
well, we have gone past our time, man, but Mike, thank you so much for talking to me. Is there anything else that you want to say before we head on out for the night?
No, I think that's really about it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
I will put links to the Patreon and everything so we can follow you, and to your Twitch, because
cheers,
it's great. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for making it through another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to continue the support in other ways, I do have a Patreon. The link is down below. Proceeds from that will go to pay for new equipment, subscription fees if I need it, and graphic design stuff. I'd like to help build this channel. So any of your support is, while never necessary, is always appreciated. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more hobby stuff, you can head on over to Twitch. I generally stream on Sundays at noon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.